Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read the part B, Magic Treehouse S5 5039, number 23, Twister on Tuesday. Page 14. They both stopped running, panting. They watched the wagon train vanish over the horizon. Page 16, chapter 3, One room schoolhouse. Let's check it out, said Annie. She and Jack walked up the little hill. At the top, they saw that the rusty pipe was rising out of a wooden roof. They walked around to the other side of the hill. Beneath the wooden roof was a door. The door seemed to open into the hill itself. What is this? Said Annie. Let's find out, said Jack. He studied the research book until he found a black and white photograph. The photograph showed the same hill with the door. Jack read aloud. Since the prairie did not have many trees, wood was hard to find, so pioneers often made their houses out of sod bricks, which were blocks of earth cut out of the prairie. Sometimes a sod house was dug out of the side of a hill. It was called a dugout. Jack pulled out his notebook. He wrote, sod bricks, blocks of earth. Dugout, sod house carved out of hillside. Jack read more to Annie. Tornadoes or twisters are common on the prairie. So many dugouts had storm cellars. A storm cellar was like a rough basement below the ground. During a twister, a storm cellar is the safest place to be. Wow, maybe we'll see a twister, said Annie. I hope not, said Jack. Then he read on. A pioneer family built this dugout for a home. When they moved, the dugout became a schoolhouse. The schoolhouse had only one room. It also had a storm cellar beneath it. Jack quickly wrote, some dugouts have storm cellars. Hey, this is the place, said Annie. Jack looked up from his writing. What place? He asked. Where's the best place to find out? Special writing, something to learn, asked Annie. Jack smiled. A school, he said. Annie ran to the wooden door and knocked loudly. A moment later, the door creaked open. A girl peeked out. Her hair was in a tight bun as if she were a grown-up, but she didn't look more than 16 or 17 years old. Hi, I'm Annie, said Annie. This is my brother Jack. The girl opened the door wider. Hello, Jack and Annie, she said. I'm your teacher, Miss Neely. You are the teacher, said Jack. Miss Neely seemed way too young to be a teacher. Yes, she said, smiling. Come in. You are late. Chapter 4, Reading Lesson. It was warm and dry inside the cool house. Several oil lamps lit the darkness. Class, meet Annie and Jack, the young teacher said. What class? Thought Jack. There were only 3 kids. On one bench sat a small boy and a girl. The boy looked about Annie's age. The girl looked a little younger. On another bench sat a tall boy. He was tough looking. Welcome to our first day of school, said the young teacher. Today is your very first day, said Annie. Yes, and our first day in this dugout. The family who lived here left for California a week ago, said Miss Neely. Jack and Annie peered around the room. The walls were made of dirt. The floor was made of wood. It was covered by a worn rug. Miss Neely's desk was made from a barrel. A small coal stove was near her desk. A crate held a water jug, chalk, and 2 small blackboards. It's a nice school, Annie said politely. Thank you. We are very grateful for it, said Miss Nelly. And where do you live? Well, Jack started. Then he stopped. He wasn't sure what to say. Actually, we don't live around here, Annie said. We are passing through. "It must be from the wagon train I saw this morning," Miss Neely said. Annie nodded. Jack smiled. "Good work, Annie," he thought. "We can only stay a little while," he said. "How exciting for you," said Miss Neely. "Heading west on a wagon train. Where are you going?" "California," Annie said. "California. That's wonderful, isn't it, class?" Miss Neely said to the others. "Yes, ma'am," said the two younger children. The older boy barely nodded. "Have you ever been to school before?" Miss Neely asked Annie. "Yes, ma'am," Annie said. "We both know how to read and write. Jax is one of the best readers you will ever meet." "My, isn't that wonderful, class?" said Miss Neely. "Yes, ma'am," said the younger children. The older boy gave Jack a scowl. "Not exactly the best," Jack said modestly. "I love to read," said Miss Neely. "I'll read any book I can get my hands on." "Me too," said Jack. "Then perhaps you'd like to start off our first reading lesson of the school year," said Miss Neely. "Oh, sure," said Jack. "Sit with Jab, then," said Miss Neely. "And Annie, you sit with Kate and her brother Will." Will and Kate quickly made room for Annie on the bench. But Jab didn't move over for Jack, not even an inch. Jack barely had room to sit. He took a deep breath and sat on the end of the bench. Miss Neely handed Jack a book. "This is our only reader," she said. "It's called the McGuffey Reader. Please read the first two lines of the poem on page 50. Sure, ma'am," said Jack. He turned to page 50. He pushed his glasses into place. Then he read aloud. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are." "Very good," said Miss Nelly. "Now pass the reader to Jeb." Jack handed the book to Jeb. "Jeb, please read the next two lines," said Miss Nelly. The older boy cleared his throat and stared at the page. "Maybe Jeb can read," was said in a kind voice to Miss Neely. Jeb's face got red. "Shut up, Will," he muttered. "Oh," said Miss Neely. She looked confused. Jack felt sorry for Jeb. He wanted to give him some help. Barely moving his lips, Jack whispered, "Up, above the world so high like a diamond." Jeb turned on Jack with an angry look. "I don't need your help," he said. "Now, Jeb, don't get mad," said Miss Neely and Jack. "You shouldn't give people the answers." "I am sorry," said Jack. Miss Neely sighed and pulled out her pocket watch. She was just starting to look tired. "Why don't you all go outside and have your noon meal?" she said. "I'll stay in and prepare for our next lesson." Miss Neely opened the door of the side hut. Annie, Kate, and Will bounced up from the seats and started cheerfully out of the schoolroom. Jack turned to Jeb. "Hey, sorry for what happened," Jack said. Jeb just glared at him and didn't say anything. "Come on, Jack," Annie called outside the hut. "Kate wants us to eat with them." Jack hurried out the door. He didn't look back at Jeb. Chapter 5, The Bully. The air outside was strangely still. The dark clouds still hovered in the distance. "Storm's coming," said Will. "We have to eat quickly before it starts to rain," said Kate. She and Will sat down on the grass. Annie and Jack sat beside them. Will opened the burlap sack. He took out 4 lumpy objects. They looked like dark rockets. "Hey, there's one here for each of us," said Kate. "One what?" asked Annie, frowning. "Sweet potatoes," said Will. He gave a potato each to Kate. Annie and Jack. "No thanks," said Jack, trying to keep his back. "We don't want to take your lunch." "We have enough. Keep it," said Kate. "What do you do with it?" asked Annie, holding up a potato. Kate laughed. "Just bite," she said, "like this." Kate and Will bit into their cold, sweet potato as if they were apples. "Cool," said Annie. She took a big bite out of a potato too, but Jack just held on to his. He didn't quite feel like eating the cold brown potato. Out of the corner of his eye, He saw a Jap sitting by himself. The big kid didn't seem to have any lunch at all. Jack thought he would try to be friends one more time. Hey, Jap, I'm not hungry. You want my sweet potato? Jap gave Jack a mean look. I could have brought my own lunch if I wanted to eat, he said. Oh, sure, said Jack. Jap narrowed his eyes. You making fun again? He said. I'm warning you. Do that one more time, and I'll fight you. Jack couldn't believe it. This kid took everything he said the wrong way. Hey, Annie said, leave my brother alone. You're nothing but a bully, Jeb. Annie, staying out of this, said Jack. But Jeb just laughed, and he stood up and walked back into the schoolhouse. Jack felt angry. He hoped they would find a special writing soon so they could leave. Will seemed to have read Jack's mind. Don't worry about him, Will said to Jack. He's never been to school before. Oh, so he is embarrassed, said Annie. Why hasn't he been to school, said Jack. 'Cause he has to work in the fields all the time, said Will. I heard him tell Miss Neely he walked 5 miles to get here today, Kay said. So he must have really wanted to come. Wow, said Annie. How far did you and Will walk? Only 2. Only 2? Said Kate. To what? Asked Annie. 2 miles. Said Kate. 2 miles? Jack repeated. The prairie kids nodded. You must be lonely living out here, Annie said. Willie and Cat nodded again. Do you live in a sod house? Jack asked. We used to, but it was always dirty, so our pop built us a log cabin. He cut trees near the creek, said Kate. Then he made the cabin by hand. Before Annie or Jack could ask another question, thunder cracked in the sky. Then rain started to fall. It fell fast and hard. Everyone jumped up. Come in, come in, Miss Neely called from the doorway. They ran back inside. The wind slammed the door behind them with a bang. The end.